So where's your brother? He's gone. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's going on,
Actually, they got a nice turnout for
Oh my God!
march them all the way around as you go back there.
One, two!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, straight as that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
So here we are. What is this? May 16th. Yep, Alan Gudaitis from the 10th Mass Volunteers. What's your rank?
I'm major now.
You're a major. Yes, so these are the Civil War reenactors. How many years have you done this cemetery?
I've been doing this since 1979.
Wow. Yeah, and there's a lot of Civil War soldiers here, aren't there?
Yeah, there's quite a bunch.
Yeah.
And it was good. I was coming as Colonel Tom Hogan. We'd come out here in the evenings after work hours and set the flags out. And we started marking the stones because they were all kind of like dissolved and you couldn't read them.
Right.
So good thing we started marking them. Makes it a lot easier for now.
Yeah. And last year, 2 years ago, the city allowed me to spend a lot of money on getting markers so that flag holders, so that when people are going around, like the volunteers we have today, they don't have to look so hard.
Right.
And they just have the pole thing right there.
What I'd do is, when they were putting out the markers on the stones, little stickers, I'd have them face the little streets so everybody could see them as they walked along.
Right.
That way they'd be easier to find. There's one section down by the school there, it's the old Civil War place. The JR bought the area.
Okay.
For the Civil War soldiers, veterans that moved here to have a plot.
Oh.
So I want to make sure they get that. There's about 7, 8 stones in there.
Yeah, I've got boxes all along, and down that section I dropped a whole gross of flags down there. So,
Good.
So how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. We're moving quickly.
There you go.
We're halfway there.
And how many cemeteries do we have in all that we do?
We do
Or no, the city?
6 total,
6 total.
and we're manning 2.
All right, so we've got Bridge Street and Spring Grove.
Yes.
And, oh, we still got West Mountain?
I think it's just called Mountain Street.
The Mountain Street one, right. Okay. All right, and we got volunteers this year from the Kiwanis Club, yay.
We're accomplishing good things.
All right.
General Order Number 11. Headquarters, Grand Army of the Republic, Washington, D.C., May 5th, 1868. 1. The 30th day of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in the defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, hamlet, churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but posts and comrades will, in their own way, arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more and to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foes. Their soldiers' lives were the reveille of freedom to our race in chains, and their death a tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can and be added to their adornment and security. This is but a fitting tribute to the memory of our slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant path invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism, avarice, or neglect, nor ravages of time testify to the present or the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull, and other hands slack, and others' hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then at the appointed time gather around the sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they save from dishonor. Let us in solemn presence renew our pledge to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as a sacred charge upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate the observance with the hope that it will be kept up from year to year, while the survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By command, John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief, N.P. Chipman, Adjutant General.
Good morning. I'm Mayor David Narkowitz for the City of Northampton, and it is my honor, as I do each year, to deliver a special proclamation in honor of Memorial Day, May 25th, 2020. Whereas from 1776 to the present, thousands of Northampton citizens have served and continue to serve in our nation's armed forces. And whereas it is our solemn duty on this day and every day to honor the memory of the men and women who died while serving and defending our nation in uniform. And whereas our city is home to the graves of over 5,000 of these brave veterans who made the ultimate sacrifice for community and country. And whereas Northampton is cognizant of the debt we owe those who died protecting our freedoms and has a long and distinguished commitment of honoring their memory. And whereas we pay special tribute this year to those veterans who survived war but sadly lost their lives to the COVID-19 virus at the Holyoke Soldiers Home, Leeds VA Medical Center, and in veteran healthcare facilities around the nation. And so now, therefore, I, Mayor David J. Narkowitz, do hereby declare Memorial Day a special day of remembrance on which we, the citizens of Northampton, rededicate ourselves to the task of honoring our fallen servicemen and women and the families who loved and supported them. In witness whereof, I have set my hand and imprinted the seal of the City of Northampton this 25th day of May, 2020. Again, it's my honor to offer this proclamation in honor of Memorial Day 2020. Thank you.
Good morning. Here we are at Memorial Hall on Memorial Day 2020. A lot of things have changed since last year, but that seems like the new normal these days. When I think of Memorial Day, I think of Park Street Cemetery in Florence on a bright sunny morning, remembering the Girl Scouts placing the flowers on the veterans' graves, the Northampton High School preparing to play their musical selections, Tom Pease and the VF Color Guard and the firing squad preparing to fire their rifle salute, along with Jack Miller preparing to play taps. Norbert Rickey and Alan Goditis getting ready to remind us of General Logan's orders, and the JF Keys getting ready to sing their patriot songs. But most of all, I remember you, some of you standing by the fence and others gathering closer in the cemetery. Memories are great things. When I asked by the Veterans Council of Northampton to be the guest speaker, I was honored and humbled. They said they wanted to hear from a Vietnam veteran on his thoughts about Memorial Day. I initially started to write about my background, about being drafted and things, but I threw all that away. You wouldn't want to hear about it anyway. So fast forward to 1967 in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. I was assigned as a company commander's radio operator. This is the guy you see in the news and the movies running around the rice paddies with the antenna flopping around over his head. My company commander's name was Captain Daniel Francis Monahan. He's the guy you see with a radio handset up to his helmet giving orders to his troops or giving situation reports back to higher ups. Of course, the handset is hooked up to the radio that's on my back. Needless to say, we were very close, but we also made a great target for the enemy. In late March, members of our company were awarded the Combat Infantryman's Badge. This is given to soldiers assigned to an infantry unit during the time the unit was engaged in active ground combat and the soldier actively participating in that ground combat. When you see someone wearing it, you'll notice that it's always on the top of the other medals, whether you're a general with a chest full of medals or a PFC with only a couple rows. While at base camp, I was fortunate enough to have Captain Monahan award me my CIB. As he pinned it on my shirt, he said, "I want you to wear this proudly because you earned it, but I also want you to wear it for those who earned it, but will never get to wear it." Again, I was fortunate enough to have my picture taken during the event by someone who had a Polaroid camera. Captain Monahan was killed in action 2 weeks later from shrapnel wounds from a Chinese Claymore mine. I still carry that picture with me on special days, but always on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. This gives me a chance to remember, to honor him, say his name, and know that he will never be forgotten. Okay, I have a favor to ask you. As my friend Tom Pease has said, all gave some, but some gave all. On this Memorial Day, I would like to ask you to take a moment and remember someone who made the ultimate sacrifice. It may have been a grandfather, a father, an uncle, or someone who lived down the street in the neighborhood, or someone you went to school with, or it may have been a spouse, a brother or a sister, or a son or a daughter. May God bless all our Gold Star families. I would ask you to bow your head, or maybe say a prayer, but say their name. In this way, on this Memorial Day, we not only remember them, we honor them, and they will never be forgotten. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you.
The following is a list of names of veterans that have fallen since we last gathered Memorial Day 2019. Abraham Stern, U.S. Army. Edward J. Condon, U.S. Navy. Richard L. DeVille, Sr., U.S. Air Force. Robert F. Coyette, Jr., U.S. Navy. Havelock J. Pursglove III, U.S. Air Force. Eleanor H. Rennell, U.S. Army. Donald R. Warburton, U.S. Navy. Saul Goldstein, Korean War. Joanne O'Shea, U.S. Air Force. Kevin B. Fisher, U.S. Marine.
Henry Ryan, United States Navy. Gordon E. Murphy, United States Air Force. David S. Drewitz, United States Air Force. Robert S. First, United States Navy. Herschel A. Cronkite, United States Air Force. Robert L. Gould, United States Navy. Priscilla S. Parker, United States Navy. Richard E. Parsons, United States Coast Guard. Paul J. Alves, United States Army. Louis J. Robert, United States Army.
Michael Kerouac, U.S. Army. Paul M. McGraw, U.S. Army. Joseph A. Phillips, U.S. Army. Bradley J. LeVay, U.S. Marines. Edmund A. Prusinski, U.S. Marines. Nicholas D. Labato, U.S. Army. Frederick C. Harris, U.S. Army. Richard D. Lemieux, U.S. Army. Beverly Tobin, Air Force. Robert Drabeck, U.S. Air Force.
John J. O'Connor, United States Army. John Andrews, United States Navy. Zenon J. D'Asto Sr., United States Army. Henry L. Donald, United States Air Force. Robert Parent, United States Army. Richard Shushutsky, United States Navy. David A. Doty, United States Navy. Larry F. Pickering, United States Army. Anthony J. Signalia, United States Coast Guard. Charles Henderson III, United States Army.
Edgar R. Perea, U.S. Air Force. Constance Candy Pernard, U.S. Air Force. John C. Renaud, Sr., U.S. Air Force. Richard C. Aquadro, U.S. Navy. Sharon L. Atchison, U.S. Navy. Brigadier General Spencer C. Bridgman, National Guard. James Sullivan, U.S. Army. Franklin H. Dressel, U.S. Army. Dominica Dupre, U.S. Army. Francis K. Sheehan, U.S. Army.
Weldon M. Long, United States Army. Phyllis E. McGrath, United States Navy. John B. Patterson, United States Navy. Byram R. Shannon, United States Army. Robert J. Kelly, United States Marine Corps. Frank Siemens, United States Army. Dominic J. Bellundo, United States Navy. Eugene E. Dugal, United States Marine Corps. Bernard Fine, United States Army. Samuel J. Lococo, United States Navy. Henry N. Stone, United States Navy. Charles Bibeau, United States Navy. Edward J. Albanzi, United States Army.
Detail, head, hut. Sport, palms. Ready? Fire. Ready? Fire. Ready? Fire. Reset. Palms.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you for attending my virtual Memorial Day ceremonies and having a little dialogue with me about Memorial Day. Obviously, this year we cannot have the ceremony as we have in the past, and so we are recording different pieces. And you've already recorded your proclamation that'll be aired as part of this whole package. But I thought it was an opportunity to just get some reflection from you on Memorial Day and kind of what it means as both an Air Force veteran, but in your memories or just as mayor of Northampton, if you had anything you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a very solemn day in our nation. Obviously, very solemn day in our city, where we remember those who lost their lives in service to our country in across the many wars and conflicts that we've been engaged in. And certainly in Northampton, it's particularly during my time as mayor, and even prior to that as a city councilor, Northampton very much takes its responsibilities of honoring those dead very seriously, whether it's the ceremony that we've had and parade, obviously record-breaking parade in terms of the longest continuous parade in Florence, to the ceremonies that happen in Leeds, to the ceremonies that happen at the VA hospital, to Leeds Ryan Road Elementary School having a ceremony. Northampton is a city that is proud of its veterans, obviously grateful to those who served and made the ultimate sacrifice. And I think we do a great job of remembering them not only on Memorial Day, but all throughout the year. So it's always a point of pride for me to participate in those ceremonies.
Yeah, agreed. I've now done, this will be my 16th Memorial Day parade or Memorial Day event that I've been on this job. And even as a child, I participated with my father, and it's got a long history. And just because Northampton doesn't always support the wars that might be fought, they have never forgotten the veterans, and I'm grateful I get to work for the city.
Most definitely. Obviously, it's a little bittersweet this year because we're in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic, and so we won't be able to, have the full sense of fellowship and community that we often have on Memorial Day. But I'm grateful that you and Northampton Open Media are working to create this sort of virtual a celebration of sorts, so that we still have an opportunity to hear from folks like Jerry Clark, and to hear go through the important rituals that we go through as part of the ceremony every year. It's also bittersweet because our friend, former longtime president of the Northampton Veterans Council, Brad LeVay, is not with us. He's someone who was such a big part of Veterans Day, Memorial Day, obviously a big part of the big 150th celebration, and we lost him this year. And so it's also bittersweet in that regard when you think of the folks that you lose over the course of a year. But he was certainly somebody who was obviously a Purple Heart Korean War veteran who took this holiday very seriously.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be beyond the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic is going on during this. It's going to be extra solemn because of just what's happened up at the Hoyok Soldiers Home. And I mean, we've lost some of the Northampton residents that have gone there, and there's a lot of pain.
Most definitely.
In Mass, for sure.
Most definitely. I made a point of including that in my proclamation this year, that these are in some cases people who survived Pearl Harbor, survived Iwo Jima, survived some of the worst combat, and then to lose them at a place like the Soldiers Home, and possibly could have been prevented, or could we have done more I think it has to make us rethink and refocus on how we care for our veterans and how we invest. It's one thing to go wave the flag on Memorial Day, but if you really want to honor veterans, it's how you take care of them and how you fund their healthcare system and how you oversee their healthcare system. So I definitely think we'll be thinking of them and their families this year in a special way.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, we're going to do our virtual thing, and hopefully by next year we're back having a full-blown ceremony back in Park Street Cemetery. It is something that I know a lot of the community is going to miss. They look forward to it every single year, but hopefully people will tune in at 11 o'clock and hear your reading of the proclamation and Jerry Clark's speech and just the different events that I am filming and putting together to make this happen, thanks to Northampton Open Media. But
thank you. And again, thank you, Steve, and thank you to the folks at Northampton Open Media. And I guess I wish everyone a safe and reflective Memorial Day. And again, like you, I look forward to us being able to return to normal for next Memorial Day and hopefully have a parade and have a ceremony and have that sense of community.
yeah, yes, indeed. All right. Well, thank you very much. I know you're awfully busy.
Thank you.
So hang in there, and
Yes.
We'll be talking to you in the future soon.
Great. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you. I'm just taking a few moments and asking various people, our leadership in the community, to maybe make some reflections on what Memorial Day means to you on this very unique year, and also in the past when either you were a child or memories that you have for Memorial Day for you.
Yeah, and I really just want to say how much I appreciate you, Steve, for doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Just
you.
really appreciate you. So I was talking to my brother-in-law. He's Jay Hennessy. He served. You probably remember. He served for 20 plus years in the SEALs, and he ended his career at captain. And I was talking to him about Memorial Day just actually over the weekend before I got your text. And one of the things that Jay said to me, which I just really love, and I've seen this embodied by you, Steve, and certainly by the veterans who have been living and working in the region for, as long as I've been here and hundreds of years before, is that the women and men who have served our nation served it for a higher purpose, a common mission. They didn't care about political party or gender or sexual orientation or the color of folks' skin, or whether you came from a hard background or an easy background. They cared about the mission and caring for each other. And that's what Jay has always said. He said, that the service has been a great equalizer in so many ways. And so that led me to think, okay, so all of these people, the women and men who've served our nation, have served it for this higher ideal. And they themselves either lost their lives in service or have lost their lives since serving. So they did this kind of service for us. So what are we going to do for them? That's where I go immediately. How do we honor their service in the highest way? I see you doing that every day, Steve, from your Veteran Services Officer position. And I'm mindful of all of the ideas that you've brought to me in terms of what we can and should be doing for veterans. And clearly I'm fighting for those with you. And thanks to you, we're winning on some of them. And again, I want to say, Steve, thanks to you, that's happening because you are putting yourself forward and you are so well regarded. But then I think about the Holyoke Soldiers Home, for example, and the way in which we haven't served the women and men connected with the Holyoke Soldiers Home and the tragedy that's unfolding there although it is somewhat arrested because of state focus, we're not finished yet. We have many, many miles to walk to ensure that the residents of the Holy Soldiers get care state that they deserve. And I know that you have been part of sounding the alarm about the Holyoke home again for far longer than I'm on. And I want you to know that I'm involved now as your advocate or as one of your advocates, and I will stay involved and see this through. You know, I think of that as approach Memorial Day as one of the ways that we can honor the service of the women and men who have served.
Well, thank you. And, you know, I thought about several times over this last 2 months of the outbreak over there. Our visit, you and I going to visit there last Veterans Day weekend. The sad news is I know two, and I think there's a third gentleman that we sat with that day who have succumbed to COVID-19 while at the soldiers' home. So some of the gentlemen, the one gentleman that was quite talkative, he is fine. He is never got tested positive, so he's negative. He's doing all right. And I spoke with somebody who was chatting with him the other day. So that's the good news. But we did lose some of the men that were at the table with us that day, and you know, yeah, and just you being there and seeing these men, it's a unique experience at that place because they want to be there. They want to be with their peers. They want to be with the other veterans. They're still identifying it that at age 60, 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
But they deserve better. And you've helped me in trying to bring that. You've only been in office for not that long of a time, and you've already done a lot. So I really thank you for that and for helping us.
Well, you know, Steve, you've been leading here. It's been easy to engage because you showed the way. You showed the way both in the ways that the state has to strengthen veteran services officers through positions that you've been holding, that, you know, clearly you are so well regarded across the Commonwealth, and clearly you show us the way this job should be done, and we should ask the state through your leadership to ensure that other veterans in other parts of the Commonwealth not served by the tireless Steve Connor get the kind of service that they need and deserve. And we have to set up those structures so that municipalities feel like they can continue to go to the mat for veterans in local communities and not let go of them because the state's made it too hard.
Yeah, I'm really glad here in Western Mass, we've got a good partnership with, through much of your district, I deal with the other VSOs. So we are doing a whole food distribution during this difficult time, trying to get all the resources and especially food to our veterans and their families. But yeah, so it's this Memorial Day is going to be quite different, but you know, whether it's virtual or in person, we really needed to make sure that we could mark it. And so I really appreciate your participation in this.
Oh my goodness, I appreciate you. And it's actually harder, I think, in COVID, knowing what we know about the Holyoke Soldiers Home,
right?
To, you know, and the tragedy that's unfolding right now. It's harder to believe that we've done everything that we could to honor the women and men who have served the nation in our name, because we haven't there, as you've said to us for years. We haven't everything we could to serve those who serve. And again, some of whom paid that ultimate price of losing their lives in battle, some of whom came home to continue to serve in so many ways, and then sought some refuge at the Holyoke Soldiers Home, and we were not able to provide it safely as a state. And it is hard to have that be with us. I know you know that better than I, Steve. It's hard to have that as part of context in which we'll mark Memorial Day this year.
Well, and we've all had a role. I mean, you've only been on for a little while in this role, but for many years, there's been representatives
Right.
and senators who have assisted families to get people in to the soldiers' home, just like I have.
Right.
And it pains you to say, wow, we did that, and they didn't get all that they should have gotten. So for us here in Western Massachusetts, this is a wake-up call for us, I think, to
Yeah.
work together to really make a difference. They deserve better than what they've been getting. So
Agree. I agree.
yeah. Well, thank you. If you have any other last minute things you'd like to say, this will be airing on Memorial Day at 11 o'clock, I believe, through Northampton Television and YouTube. And I'm sure to send a link to everyone. But
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
No, just I think that, I can't say it better than you would say it, Steve. Women and men who have served our nation, we honor you and thank you for your service. And it's up to us now, those of us serving as veteran services officers, covering, I don't even know how many towns, Steve, those of us at state government, those of us at the federal level, it's up to us to serve you now. And that's what I signed up to do. And it's the greatest honor of my life.
Thank you. Thank you. Now you grew up in Westfield, correct?
I did, yes.
So did Westfield always have a parade, or did they have a ceremony that you remember?
Westfield always had a parade, and I lived on the north side of Westfield, so we had, it was easier for us to get to the start of the parade because of that, because you would just come down the hill and everybody gathered at this really large field. And for a lot of years, I got to march in the parade because they would have all of the Girl Scouts march, and I didn't go very far in Girl Scouts, but I was a daisy, so I got to march, and then I got to watch my brother march in other years. He went a little bit further before skateboarding took over his life. So it was something that I think it felt like most of the city showed up for, and I guess as I got older, it felt like fewer and fewer people went to it. Of course, when you're little, everything seems so much bigger. But then I think one of my first memories of moving to Northampton was I moved to the center of Florence, and my daughter was, let's see, it was May, so she was 7 months old, and of course woke up at the crack of dawn. And I woke up and I looked out of the window of our apartment, which is really right on Main Street, Florence. And there were a lot of women walking around in what looked like Civil War garb. And I thought, what in the world, what is happening? And I had no idea that the tradition was so powerful in Florence, and that there were these people who every year dressed up in Civil War garb. And we really didn't know, because I think my parents were coming over for a Memorial Day picnic afterwards, and they didn't know how long the parade was, and they got stuck waiting for, I think, about an hour and a half as everything cleared up and they were on the other side. And so it's funny that it does stick with me as one of my very first memories of living in Northampton, and just my daughter loving to watch it from the window of that apartment, because we had a really perfect view.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. I didn't know that you were right on Main Street. Yeah, that from Trinity Road to Park Street. Well, of course, we loop around.
We were right across the street from Trinity Row, so literally everything happened right in front of our front window. And she used to just love to sit in that window anyway and watch everything. So the day that happened was very special.
Well, you were mentioning about the Girl Scouts, so I did get a chance. One of the troops, Girl Scouts, yesterday, adorned in masks, came and laid flowers at Park Street Cemetery like we always do. So I was able to record that. So it's going to come together, what we do here on Memorial Day. But
I saw the pictures from that in Southampton, the troops laying flowers at the graves. That was really lovely. And that is actually I love going there too. Last year I ran, so I went to Southampton first for their parade, and then went from that to the Northampton parade, and then made it to Westhampton. So it's a little bit hard. Hatfield luckily had their parade the day before, so that was easier. But I really do like all of them because you see just people in the community come out. And in Southampton last year, there was this woman, her daughter actually teaches in Hatfield, but she was a nurse in World War II. And just, getting to talk to her and listening to her experiences is really special. To have somebody we don't, and I know my mother always said that she remembered people who were actually in the Civil War marching when she was a kid, and they were 90 at that time, but it's really, really special to have those memories still shared firsthand, and we lose that constantly.
Yeah, you talked about the Civil War garb that was the 10th Massachusetts and the 9th Mass that used to be in our parade every year. They still have membership. It's not as big as it used to be. My father used to be a member of that as well. So yeah, and musket would be hanging around the house and Civil War. But yeah, but it's very important to remember. It all started with the Civil War, and it continues today. So the two big cemeteries are, when it comes to that, are Park Street in Florence and then Bridge Street down there. There's a lot of Civil War soldiers who did pass, were brought back up, and they went into those graveyards. So it's an important time for us to remember them. So, well, thank you. Thank you for taking a few minutes this morning and talking with us.
Of course.
And,
I guess the only thing I just want to say is, and I don't really know how to say it because I've been struggling, but when you talked about this year being important, I mean, everything to me just keeps going back to the Soldiers' Home in Holyoke. And I think watching what's happened there and feeling so helpless on so many levels, because I mean, it's years of mismanagement, obviously, that got us to the point where it is. And then when you watch it as an elected official and you feel like you should be able to go in and just fix it, and you have no ability to do that, it's really, I don't want to, say it's really hard for me because I can't imagine being there and being one of those veterans and then being the family of one of those veterans. And I've got to speak to those families. But I think this year, in particular, I would hope that would be everyone's thought, and now I'm crying. I would hope that would be everyone's thought, because God, we can't let things like that happen. And that's just, we can't talk about respecting veterans and paying homage to sacrifice and then allow people to die in that way because we don't really want to step up. And so I hope that at least this is going to mark the year where we stop doing that. I don't want to be overly pie in the sky about it because, we know that that's a lot harder, quite obviously, than it should be. But
yeah, I thank you for bringing that up. There is a collective pain in Western Massachusetts that is very unique, and so when anybody brings it up, you immediately see the pain on their faces, whether they had somebody there now or in the past or at any time. It's just it's not okay what is to happen there.
It's not.
And this Memorial Day, it's important to remember all of them.
And my one of my good friends that I went to high school with, her grandmother is there, and she's fine. She's doing okay, and they're happy that she's all right. And all of her tests have come back negative. But they always keep, my friend keeps reminding me, like, remember there are women there too. Remember, it's not just the men. Right. Because she got frustrated. They kept saying the servicemen. She said, yes, and my grandmother. And my grandmother. And of course, I grew up, seeing her grandmother and seeing pictures of her grandmother and hearing those family stories. So even though it's not my family, you still feel that connection because when you grew up here, everybody knows somebody there.
Right. Yes. And some of the veterans that have passed up there are originally from Northampton. So, yes. And it's painful for me because I helped get them in there, and it's a struggle, but yes, so everybody should take a moment and just remember all those folks as well.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative, for coming on with us this morning, and I hope you have a great weekend. And we'll just keep
Likewise.
plugging along until this all is over and we get back to some sense of normal.
We will. New normal.
Yes, a new normal.
Thank you so much for everything you're doing, Steve. Always.
Thanks.
Thank you.